There you go.
Hello.
There you go.
Hi.
We just heard somebody say, Dr. Steve, where art thou? Dr. Steve is late as normal. That's my problem.
No,
Hey
no,
guys,
it's
how
the
you doing?
Trump
Hey Hannah.
approach.
The
It's the
Trump
Trump
approach. That's
approach.
it. That's it. We're keeping you guys in suspense to make the program even better. That's it. That's it. You got it.
Yes. Yes. Well, good to see you, Steve.
Good to see you
Hello,
too,
hello.
Hannah.
You
We
know,
were
I
just
wore this
together in
hat.
Harrisburg for our meeting, which was great. And so we were able to see each other, and glad you got back to the great red state of Idaho in one piece. So.
I am so glad to be back in the red country. And I know our governor was there at the border this week, so we'll
Yeah.
talk about that, which is so
Yeah.
exciting. But Steve, I wore this MAGA hat in the Atlanta airport yesterday, and I was a little nervous because I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I got to the airport in Harrisburg. I cannot tell you how many people from the time I went to the airport in Harrisburg till I landed in Boise came up to me and whispered in my ear, "I love your hat, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing."
Absolutely. I knew they would. Didn't I tell you that?
Yeah,
I
you
told you
did.
that.
You
I said
did.
people are going to come up. They're not going to accost you. They're going to adore you. They're going to love this, and they're going to show that your support and fellowship, and it's just awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. Oh, that's so cool. It's good
I
to hear.
did have several people who, I could obviously tell who they supported with their masks and their BLM shirts. They were staring me down, and I realized it's probably because they think that I'm a terrorist, and so terrorist.
They're actually physically nervous. Yeah, I could see
I
that.
know.
That's hilarious.
But
Well, again, it's just another, yeah, it's an emotional mask, I guess they have on top of the physical one. Yeah.
yeah. Well, welcome everybody. It's our Monday night special live stream. We got lots to talk about tonight. I'm so excited about this. Things are heating up at the border as always. I feel like lots of our conversations recently, Steve, have been about the border, which of
Yeah,
course
big
as
time.
should be.
Yep.
But for those of you who are here in our virtual studio, a special welcome. It's so good to be with you. If you want to come join us here in the virtual studio and ask a question, we're going to get into some questions here in a little bit. Click that link in the description. We've got a little update for you guys on the demonetization situation, but we'll tell you guys about that in a little bit. So with that, Steve, I want you to dive in. There's so much to talk about here. Like I said, I'm so proud of my governor for taking a stand. And I know so many others of you tuning in probably feel the same tonight. So let's talk about it.
Absolutely. The red state coup. That's what I'm calling it. Governors, Republican governors all across the nation really are rising up and banding together. This is impressive stuff. What happened over the weekend with Greg Abbott and 14 Republican governors that surrounded him at the actual border at Eagles Pass. It is something, I think, it's a rising among red states. It's a phenomenon that's arising among red states that we predicted would happen as Biden looks, and this is just the nature of political power and how political power is dynamic and how it shifts around different dynamics. As Biden looks increasingly weak and incompetent, and keep in mind, these Republican governors were doing this before the NBC poll came out that's really putting the deep state into a panic here. We could talk about that later on, although check out my first video today. I got into a deep dive with that. But as Biden just ends up looking increasingly weak and incompetent, we predicted that regional political powers, like red state governors, would step into the gap, literally, in order to, yes, cynically, increase their own political power, but increase their own political power to our benefit, because that political power means they're representing our values, interests, and concerns, and not the values, interests, and concerns of Wall Street and the donor class who want open borders for the cheap labor. And it looks like we really are seeing that here. We're seeing GOP governors not just posturing, but actively stepping into a sort of a power vacuum and securing more power for themselves away from DC so as to do what the bumbling Biden administration is failing to do. So on Sunday, 14 governors publicly aligned themselves with Governor Greg Abbott and his efforts at securing the border, which we need, again, to reiterate, the Biden administration is emphatically not doing, right? When all is said and done, Abbott and these 14 governors are doing the job that Joe Biden refuses to do. And so all these governors stood together and declared that they will do everything they can in their power to secure the border, to help Texas and its ongoing effort to secure the border. That involves primarily two things. That involves sending money and resources. Remember, Texas is taking a huge tax burden up on themselves to make up for the deliberate incompetence of the Biden administration. So these governors are promising to help out with the costs, and they're promising troops on the ground, particularly their state National Guard troops. This is most particularly Tennessee. They've sent National Guard troops. They're sending even more. This is Governor Lee of Tennessee. He made that clear when he was at the border. The brand new governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, he's sending troops. The governor of Missouri is sending troops, or Missouri. I don't know how you guys pronounce it. And then even as far away as Alaska, Tim Pool was talking about this earlier, and it indeed is the case. The Alaskan National Guard is widely being reported on its way to the Texas southern border as we speak to help out with the efforts of curbing this massive flood of illegal migrants. It was a very impressive show of force at the border. And I would argue, at least symbolically, it was, in effect, a kind of red state coup, a mutiny, as it were, that's rising up to stand in the literal gap left deliberately open by the bumbling Biden administration. And we've talked about this phenomenon of a NATO-like alliance that would inevitably arise between red states. I wish I could say this was something I had come up with. It is not, but it was a Turley where I originally got it from. That's Jonathan Turley, my namesake, a professor of law at George Washington University. He wrote a very interesting article. This was several months back on recommending a NATO-like alliance among red states. It was originally conceived of as an effective counter to blue state boycotts against red states. So I don't know if you remember, but states like California, they were boycotting Georgia after Georgia passed their election integrity laws. And those threats were very real because like a blue state, particularly of California, could tap into the control they have over California-based national woke corporations. And so those corporations were basically telling Georgia, we're not going to do business with you anymore. And so even the thugs over at the New York Times were actually warning pro-life red states like Texas that they would lose their economic advantages if enough woke companies boycott them, which the New York Times was championing. In other words, we're going to force you to adopt our woke insanity, whether you like it or not, right? So much for the freedom of liberalism, right? Liberalism is inherently tyrannical by its nature. And what Jonathan Turley suggested several months back in the face of these boycott threats is that all red states need to do is form a kind of NATO-like alliance, an alliance where an attack on one is an attack on all. So what red states would do is they would formally pass legislation barring state business or travel with any state, any blue state that engages in the boycotts. So the key would be that the agreement has to stand on principle. It can allow no exceptions and trigger immediate reciprocity. So a travel ban on, say, Nebraska would result in a reciprocal ban, not just from Nebraska, but from every single state, red state in this NATO-like alliance. So in this way, when California tries to bully a conservative state like Utah, it only end up shooting itself in the foot, right? Because it's going to end up awakening the wrath of half the nation. And so eventually the administrative and competitive costs of these blue state boycotts would just become prohibitive and they would stop. I think we're seeing something very much akin to this with what happened over the weekend and all those 14 state red state governors gathering around Governor Greg Abbott. I think we're seeing a comparable NATO-like alliance forming that's being formed by all of these red states when it comes specifically now to illegal immigration. An attack on Texas is an attack on us all. That's exactly the way they were talking at the border. If Texas needs to deploy its National Guard, we'll deploy our National Guard. If Texas needs to spend state money on this, we'll spend state money on this. And you got the hint as well that the moment illegal immigrants show up in other red states, those governors are going to immediately bust them to blue states, particularly the ones with sanctuary cities, just like Greg Abbott's been doing to New York City and to Chicago and to Denver. When a blue state tries to retaliate against one of the red states, like Texas or to a certain extent Arizona, its legislature is still red, such a retaliation would be met with a reciprocal retaliation on the part of every single red state in this alliance. Right now, it's 14. Very, very formidable. This is exactly the scenario that I think we're seeing unfold right in front of our very eyes. Now, you just want to finally add here, you add on top of this the absolute absurdity of this James Lankford border bill, this utter monstrosity. Get the primary challenge going like right now. Don't wait even 24 hours to get rid of this guy. The pressure for him to resign is enormous right now. But I think you on top of this, you add this absolute absurdity of this border bill monstrosity. And I think we hit a home run politically in the last 48 hours. Nobody wants this bill. Nobody. MSNBC is doing everything they possibly can to convince their dwindling audience that it's the Republicans who are standing in the way of a secure border. Now, red states are standing in the way of a secure border. Now, if you think that people are going to buy that, I've got some oceanfront property in Arkansas to sell you. Because as you know, you can't beat the optics. You can't beat the optics. Who are the only ones they see actually securing the border right now? Like physically see. Who are the ones who are setting up razor wire and who are the ones who want to cut it? The only ones actively engaged in border security right now are red states. People are going to believe their own eyes before they believe the desperate tactics of the Democrats. I mean, for heaven's sakes, the Epoch Times, I don't know if you saw this, they reported that New York Democrats are giving illegal migrants in New York City right now $53 million of prepaid debit cards. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. The moment Democrats say, oh, maybe we've got the Republicans on this one, maybe we can actually win this issue back with this border bill stunt, they end up shooting themselves in the foot. They're the ones who are actually giving out prepaid debit cards to these illegals. And even Elon Musk sees openly the kabuki theater going on here. He pointed out the Biden administration has made no effort, none whatsoever, to curb the deluge of illegal migrants crossing the border. Remember, for the last 3 years, do you remember they've been trying to blame Trump? They said, oh, he made such a mess of the border. This is all Trump's fault. Every poll after poll after poll shows nobody outside, again, of the most brainwashed ideologues. No one believes that. So they know not only is the Biden administration not doing anything about it, they know the Biden administration is encouraging this. They know freaking even Eric Adams of New York. He could talk tough, but they're distributing $53 million worth of prepaid debit cards to these people. They're encouraging this stuff. And why are they doing this? Musk said it out loud. Musk said they are purposely flooding the nation with illegal immigrants because the Democrats are demographically hemorrhaging voters. And illegal migrants are the only way they believe they can replace those lost votes. They are hemorrhaging voters, and illegal migrants are the only way that they can replace those lost votes. That's what they believe. If not, they become a permanent minority party. They're permanently consigned to a political periphery. That's what this is ultimately all about. And the cheap labor that the Chamber of Commerce lobbyists want. They want cheap labor to maximize the margins. The Democrats want the votes. And the donor class doesn't care either way. Because as you can see with this sham border bill from the Republican, Senator Langford of Oklahoma, as you can see, as far as the donors and the lobbyists are concerned, they don't care who's in power because they just write whoever's in power the same checks. They stroke the same checks to the same politicians who then work their legislative magic that always, always, always works in accordance with the values, interests, and concerns of the ultra wealthy. Both parties do it. So they don't care. So Mike Johnson, God bless him, Speaker of the House, sort of checkered record so far, but he's come out with all the House Republican leadership. They're all unified. Steve Scalise, all of them. And they're all saying this thing is DOA. This bill is going nowhere fast. And within the Senate, Lindsey Graham has already come out and said, probably because it doesn't have enough money for Ukraine. I don't know. But he's come out and said this won't even make it to the scheduled vote on Wednesday. It's an abject disaster. And everyone knows it. Everyone knows. The Washington Senate, the powers that be, is trying to pull a fast one on us. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows the DC establishment does not care about closing the border. Everyone can see it. I mean, literally with their eyes. They see Texas forces. They see Greg Abbott. They see Republican governors. They see Donald Trump. They don't see a single Democrat, most especially Biden, trying to secure our borders. All the polls show that the vast majority of voters blame Biden for this mess at the southern border. So I think this has left a very significant power vacuum that we're seeing a kind of red state NATO-like alliance filling that will only further strengthen and bolster the red sanctuary state that's setting up the administrative and bureaucratic and increasingly even military National Guard defenses against a lunatic Washington, D.C.
Well, I found the clip, Steve. If you want to watch that clip of this message coming from the horse's mouth. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, play it.
All right.
The assessment at the border today. Now, you've got a border trip coming up. You are hosting several governors from across the country at the southern border today, correct? Can you tell us about it?
Sure, that's correct. Maria, more than half of the governors are now joined together in support of a very important proposition, and that is we are guaranteed by the United States Constitution the right of self-defense if states face imminent harm or invasion. Texas obviously is facing both an imminent harm as well as an invasion. And so these governors are rallying around Texas to support our ongoing right to self-defense and the deployment of this razor wire that has led to a massive reduction in inflow. Maria, get this. The area where we have occupied this park in Eagle Pass, Texas, that we put up the razor wire, there used to be 3,000 or 4,000 people crossing that area a day. For the past 3 days, we've averaged just 3 people crossing that area. The point is, if we put up resistance, we show that we can secure the border. Joe Biden should not be stopping that.
Yeah, let me get your take on what's going on in New York. We understand now.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And again, that's what I mean. There's no way Democrats can fight that politically. They can bark all they want. They can get Rachel Maddow to spew her nonsense all they want to their dwindling audience. Americans see that. And when they see that, they know it's Republicans, MAGA Republicans who are securing that border and it's Democrats that are trying to interfere with that security.
Didn't they try to do this, the Democrats, back in the 60s with the black vote? And now that that's turned on them, they've got to find something else. So here it is, everybody. This is
Oh my gosh, yeah,
the Democrats. It's just pathetic. Absolutely pathetic.
Yeah. No, they recognize their coalition is unraveling. That's what they're seeing. I mean, that NBC poll solidified it. I mean, they knew things were going on. They were really scared. But they're, it's gonna be okay. It's okay, because we've always got YouGov, The Economist, and NBC, and they're the most. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, this is why we always compare and contrast all the different polls and aggregate them via the Real Clear Politics averaging of the polls, because NBC, YouGov, The Economist. I mean, Biden could be found guilty of being an axe murderer. He'll still be in the lead in one of those polls. They are so pro Biden in terms of their polls. And now all of them are starting to show the Trump surge that all the other polls were showing for the last few months. And when NBC finally came out and showed Trump with a 5-point lead and with 20+ point leads on the top issues that voters can care about, like border and economy, and then ahead with 20 points with independents, who are the largest right now, technically the largest political bloc. Democrats and Republicans are now second and third, as it were, to independents. Independents are the majority now, nearly 40% of the population, and Trump's ahead with independents by 20 points. I mean, they're like, and then when they look and saw that Trump is winning with Latinos, and Biden is only winning about 80% of the black vote when he should be up around 92, 93%. They're recognizing that the cutting away at those margins, it's going to be impossible. Again, apart from radical shenanigans that make 2020 look tame by comparison, they just can't do it.
Well, we maybe I'll tease this a little bit. Steve, you and I were talking today about doing a deep dive on this topic, maybe at the end of next week. So we'll give you guys more information, but this is really exciting for us. We really want to give you guys the tools to play a role in this conversation. So we'll give you more info on that. We're still planning it, but I think that'd be really great, Steve. No, we mentioned that a little bit, but we got lots of questions here, and we'll get into those. I see some questions here from YouTube. I wanted to let you guys know, if this is your first time here, that of course we're demonetized, and we have a very important date coming up here at the end of February when our channel is going to get analyzed again. And who knows what's going to happen, but I'd like to ask you guys, for Dr. Steve, if you guys could do us a favor, and that is to please go click the link in the description and just put your name and your email in. If something happens by the end of the month, we have to be able to contact you. It is so important for our movement that we can still engage and all be together no matter what happens in the coming year. It might not be February. It might be in several months. It might be by the election. Who knows? But we have to be able to talk to one another. That's what they want. They don't want us to talk to each other. So if you guys right now could go and put your name and your email into that link in the description, that would be incredibly helpful. That way you can get on our email list and we can contact you if something happens. Once you put your name and your email in, you'll be invited to join our movement. And that's where you can come in. Yeah, Ryan says, I love the Insiders Club. Yes, exactly. That's where you can come into our virtual studio here. Rumble's great, y'all. And I see a lot of comments about just go to Rumble. That's still another platform that we are subjecting ourselves to. We want to be 100% in control of the conversation, 100% in control of anything that we say. We don't want anybody to be able to stop us. So if you feel
also keep in mind, they're doing everything they can to shut Rumble down.
Yeah, very true.
You never know. The guarantee that we'll never lose touch with each other is getting off of the social media platforms and getting on our own. That's the key.
Yes, exactly. So please put your name and your email in. That's how we can connect. You'll be invited to join our movement after that if you'd like to. It's just $5 a month. That's it. That's where you can come in and ask questions in our virtual studio. And then in just a minute, we're going to cut off this stream and just spend time with that community, going deep, diving into your questions, and also talking about how to build a parallel economy with some boycotts and boycotts. We do that every week. And this week, we're talking about the most recent grocery store chain that has gone full blown woke. So you don't want to miss that. If you love what Dr. Steve does, I hope that you will put your name and your email in, and we can continue on no matter what anybody does or says. So
That's right.
Yeah. So if you've done that, let me know in the chat. I'd love to know if you put your name and your email in. And if you are becoming a member, you can go join us here in the virtual studio right there once you log in. So, Steve, let's talk about the caucus. About an hour from now, I'm going to go to training for how to caucus right after this live stream ends. I'm so excited about that. So Nevada is coming up with their caucus. Idaho is in March. So can you clarify for everybody real quick, caucuses and primaries and what's going on in Nevada and when? It's very soon.
Yeah, so Nevada's a little confusing this week. So tomorrow, the state of Nevada is holding its Republican primary. And on Thursday, I believe it's Thursday, they're holding their caucus. so they're doing both, right? Normally we're used to an Iowa caucus and a New Hampshire primary. Nevada's doing both. And then the difference is kind of negligible here in terms of what Nevada is doing. But bottom line, a primary is just an election. You can mail in your vote. I mean, you can vote, weeks ahead of time, and a primary is just an election. You could show up on election day to vote your primary day. Whereas a caucus is actually a physical meeting where you can only vote on one day. That's it. No votes cast prior. And then you have to show up to the location of the caucus, designated location. And then candidates can actually politic all the way to the point right when you vote. They can people change their votes at the last minute. They could try to negotiate some kind of deal with you. It's just a lot more. It's old school politics. And what's going on this week is that Nevada has always had a caucus. It's always had a caucus. It's had a caucus for decades. Democratic lawmakers in the state, for all kinds of goofy reasons after 2020, passed legislation to switch the state caucus to a state primary. So Nevada Republicans basically said, screw you, we're going to do a caucus, which they have the right to do. The Democratic legislature in Nevada couldn't dictate what the Republicans did to nominate their own candidate, but they can require a primary. They can do that. Republicans sued to stop the primary because they thought that overstepped boundaries. And the court basically said, when all said and done, I kid you not, the court said, look, if your Democratic legislature wants to require both parties to do primaries, you don't have to participate in it. But we can't stop them from passing that legislation. If that's what they want, they can. You don't have to participate in it. So, yes, it's a mess, but that's what the courts decided. So this week, the Nevada Republican Party, which is very strong right now, right? They have a Republican governor that's very, very popular. But the Nevada Republican Party, they told the Democrats in their state legislature to basically stick it. And they passed a resolution that they will stick with caucuses, and that any Republican presidential contender that participates in the primary on Tuesday cannot compete in the caucus. You're barred from the caucus. And it's the caucus alone that awards delegates. The primary, you get diddly squat. The primary is not a Republican recognized contest. So, of course, Nikki Haley is basically the only Republican in this primary tomorrow, in this Nevada primary. Trump is not on the ticket. Make sure you know that. Trump is all in, of course, on the caucus on Thursday because he wants delegates, right? So Trump is going to crush it on Thursday. He's going to get all the delegates because he's basically uncontested there. So pay my advice to you, pay absolutely no attention to any of the propaganda BS from tomorrow's primary. Nikki Haley is going to milk that more than she milks Saturday Night Live. Nikki Haley is going to milk that for all it's worth. It is, do not forget this, it is as meaningless of a primary. It's as meaningless of an event as anything possibly could be. Focus on Thursday. That's when Trump is just going to begin just totally running away with this. And then South Carolina, that primary is coming up days from now, and Nikki looks like she's going to lose that by as many as 30 or 40 points. So, in her own home state. So, anyway, there you go. That's some advice for this week.
When you write emails to yourself, it looks real bad. So I don't know if y'all
Did
saw
you guys
that.
see that? Tell them what you're talking about. It's hilarious.
Oh my goodness. Nikki tweeted her support last week saying, thank you so much for everyone who's written such kind emails and written such nice letters. And she included a picture, but it was a screenshot that she clearly had not actually sent.
A screenshot of an email that had not been sent.
Yes.
There's no sender address.
And it said something like, thank you so much from Michael A. Who signs a letter like Michael A? It's so stupid. All the comments were just so funny.
She got so ratioed. It was bizarre.
Her comments are fun to read, but yes. Well, I'm so excited. I love following that kind of stuff. So that'll be fun to see her get squashed. Her SNL performance was
right. She will win. She will win tomorrow, but it's literally the primary the Democrats are putting on for the Republicans. Nobody cares. It's meaningless.
Well, she's probably going to come out and say something like that she's just won the entire election, because you know how she can be by saying
it's now a one-woman race. That's right.
Exactly. So silly. Well, I see some questions here in the chat. If you are just coming in on the virtual studio side, I didn't mention this earlier. We always say this, if you've been here, put the word question in all caps, and I will go through and grab those as we talk here in a minute after we cut off. I put the link here at the bottom of our screen. So if you want to come join us over there, we're going to be talking about a lot of fun stuff. Just go to join.turleytalks.com. Make sure to put your name and your email in at least. That way we can get in touch with you. And keep an eye out for what's going to happen in February. Who knows? So please do put your name and your email in. We are so amazed by the support, but we've got 1 million people that are subscribed to this channel, and we hope to bring as many of you guys as possible over to wherever we're going on our journey. So please make sure to do that. That would be good. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, anything else to add, Steve, before we switch over here and talk about the next woke grocery store?
Yeah, there you go. No, absolutely. Just click on the link below. Definitely give us your email so we can stay in touch with each other, and then join up with the Insiders Club, and then come on over to our virtual studio. We're going to answer your questions.
Yes. And we are streaming on Twitter now, which is so cool. So thank you to everybody who's watching on Twitter right now. I got a message from someone saying that they were watching on Twitter for the first time. They'd never heard of Insiders Club, and they joined. So
great. Awesome.
It's amazing.
Cool.
It's amazing. Cool. So thank you guys. It's always a pleasure to be with you here on Monday nights. If you haven't joined yet, please do, and we'll see you over there. So with that, Insiders members, go ahead and ask your questions, and I'm going to close this down.